that makes a massive difference on a political level, but also on a service level. That makes a massive difference than what you have right now, and that's why this
what
is
he's saying.
That's what he's talking about, right?
To affect regime change in a country with 90 million people, such a massive territory, just through strikes from America or Israel is that's a difficult thing.
Any area that Israel has been and then pulls back is a void for terrorism.
Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should always be connected to the land and the people of Israel. Glad to be with you guys today. Luke Hilton here with Joshua Waller and special guest contributor who you guys have seen many times, Nate Waller. Welcome to the show. Ari Abramowitz, Jeremy Gimpel, unfortunately not with us today. And I know we missed last week. We're also going to miss next week because it's Passover here in Israel, but we'll be with you guys as soon as we can. I know Jeremy and Ari are itching to get back to the podcast as well. So they'll be here hopefully very soon. A couple of weeks, we'll all be back together. So stay tuned, guys. We're going to talk about what's happening with the war. There's some very clickbait headlines in the media right now talking about the possible collapse of Israel's military. The IDF chief of staff, Zamir, this is in the Jerusalem Post, warns IDF will collapse due to manpower and raises 10 red flags. We're going to get into that in just a second because, as you know, headlines are usually not nearly as dramatic as they sound. But guys, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're following on all of our channels. If you haven't heard about the new Show Notes newsletter coming out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you want to make sure and be on our email list because we have a brand new Show Notes. It's like everything you need to know coming out of the Middle East, Israel, and Judea and Samaria, and it connects you to Scripture, all in one short, easy-to-read newsletter. Our team is doing an amazing job. Feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. If you're not on it, make sure you subscribe at theisraelguys.com. We'll put a link down below. So, article in the Jerusalem Post talking about the possible collapse of the IDF. Sounds very dramatic. Sounds very clickbaitish.
Yeah.
We opened it, started digging into it. Nate's done some research on this, and not nearly as dramatic as it sounds, but definitely takes some explaining and something you guys should know about. You're probably curious about. So he says that this week, IDF Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, was at a security cabinet meeting on Wednesday, and he said, "I'm raising 10 red flags before the IDF collapses into itself." And he says there's tremendous concern due to the severe manpower shortage, especially amid the ongoing war. So there's a couple things going on here. First of all, since October 7th, there are many. So as you know, Israel's not really a career army. The majority of soldiers in the IDF are not career soldiers, unlike the American military. Everyone is conscripted at 18 and serves either 2 or 3 years in the military, mandatory service. And then they are in the reserves, can be called up at any time. Also, typically they serve about 1 month out of every year for many, many years after that. Often people serve into their 40s, sometimes even older. And so the majority of the IDF is made up of the citizens of Israel. You could call it like a citizen army. So after October 7th, so many soldiers were called up and served for so many days that there's definitely a weariness. 2.5 years later, now we're at war with Lebanon again, war with Syria, war with Iran. Who else are we at war with? The Houthis,
Right. 7 fronts, yeah.
Gaza, Hamas, Judea and Samaria, right? All this stuff. There's soldiers that have served 700 days, probably 800 days going on. There's definitely a weird, and some of these guys are reservists, they were taken from their families, taken from their jobs. So there's definitely weariness.
I think that's true, and that was my first what is he even talking about? Because here on the ground, you see a strong Israel, you see a vibrant, Jewish people are fighting for their existence. They're fighting all these threats, these massive threats, and they're strong. And what you're saying is true. There's some fatigue from men who are not, in the service. It's not lifelong service.
It's not a career.
It's not a career service. It's a they're on the reserve duty. And so what he's saying is that yes, there is some fatigue on this front, and these guys have been in since October 7th. What we going on year after year now, and it's long. And so what are these people doing with businesses? And so, but that's one side of it. I don't think that's not what he's referring to. And I think the real point here is this is a political statement, and this political statement is pointed at the Haredi community. He's saying
The
these
ultra-Orthodox
guys,
community of Israel.
right. And he's saying these people need to be enlisted. They need to be like every other community group.
What if you're not
in
familiar
Israel.
with it? Like the ultra-Orthodox in Israel, not all of them, many of them do not want to serve in the military. And many of them often don't really want to be part of, what do you call it, like the secular state of Israel. Many of them are dedicated to Torah study, learning, basically, their Jewish faith. There are many that are very Zionist, many that contribute to the state of Israel. There are more and more actually serving in the IDF now. But there's it's been very controversial for years now that the government of Israel has been trying, because every citizen of Israel goes into the army at 18, but the Haredi are exempt. Right. And the reason they're exempt is because there are several parties, ultra-Orthodox parties in the Knesset, Israel's parliament, that have a lot of sway, because there's enough. As you know, Israel's Knesset is made up of 120 members, and as long as a coalition more than 60 is formed, then you have a ruling government. But the instant you drop below that majority, then the government dissolves and elections are called. So the ultra-Orthodox have typically, for many years now, been like a key player in the conservative coalition governments. And so if they don't like something, then they drop out of the government, and then the Knesset is dissolved and elections are called. And one of their top issues is being exempt from military service.
Well, I think it
So
really,
that's the deal. Let's get to the numbers. Why is this a political statement? And
I think we need to back up there a little bit more, because their reasoning for not doing it is because they believe that their whole culture and their sect of Judaism is to study Torah and to really bring the fullness of God's word to the people. Like that's what they believe that supersedes fighting in the military, doing anything like that. Now, what they do, and I think this is a common misconception, is that they don't give to the Israeli society at all. The numbers, I tried to find it, but I couldn't find anything online right here. But the numbers are much higher in the civil volunteer service, because civil volunteer service, they can serve on ambulance crews, they can serve as nurses in the hospitals and stuff like that, and they can do that 2 to 3 days a week and still continue their studies in the Torah and in the biblical writings and different things. So that's the reason why they don't want to serve in the military, because in the military that doesn't really work. You can't really do studies. There is a program where they do year on, year off, but it's not integrated into the day in and day out of the military service.
And their other big issue is that it's not a religious system. It's a secular system.
It's a secular government. Correct. But so the numbers. So right now Israel has roughly almost 500,000 reserves. They called up immediately after October 7th happened, about 300,000. And then since then, there's been numbers of we don't really know exact numbers on that, but roughly 100,000 have been serving even this year of reserves called up. Out of 500,000, that's a pretty large number of people that you're pulling from the working class of the country. So that's more or less what he's talking about, is those people. And where it really pulls into the numbers is going forward. Right now, the Haredi community only makes up about 15% of the population of Israel. In 40 years,
that would be a lot of reserves.
Correct.
That would help this manpower issue.
What was the average age of the Haredi community too?
It's under 19. Average age is under 19.
So this is a lot of potential soldiers for the IDF.
Huge amount, which goes to the next number is that in 40 years, so 2065 is what this status, the numbers are for 2025 to 2065. What they're projecting is that the Haredi community would be more than 50% of Israel's population. That makes a massive difference on a political level, but also on a service level. That makes a massive difference than what you have right now, and that's why this
what
is
he's saying.
That's what he's talking about, right? That's what he's talking about. Is if this 50% of the population is not serving in the military, then we have a problem.
In 2020, in 2056 or whatever,
2060.
I mean, it is a problem right now. There's enough of them right now that it is a problem. And like I said, I think the ultra-Orthodox parties typically have maybe 12, 15 seats. So it's like a significant, when Bibi Netanyahu was trying to form a coalition, another 12 seats is pretty significant, and that's the power to form a coalition or dissolve a coalition.
Well, and I think the other big thing that comes down to the people here and why this has become such a big issue is because there's a lot of benefits that they're receiving from the government.
Yeah.
And the rest of the nation's having to carry that.
Mhm.
And that's where it really comes down and kind of like it becomes a sensitive issue for the rest of the nation.
I just want to point out, though, that for all those people who read this title, that's why we're bringing this up. It may sound like a little internal Israel, thing, but a lot of people read this title and were like, "Wait,
Military's collapsing.
the IDF is at the verge of collapse. Their lack of manpower. What was it? What's going on?" And so, I hope this has helped everybody understand now. The IDF is strong. They're
And I do
the
want to
10th
say,
most
like,
powerful
couple
military
things.
in the world today.
It is an internal issue.
That's right.
But when you hear the news and especially you hear about these massive like protests in Jerusalem or like, anti-police stuff, like this is typically what it's about, or like the community that is part of these protests and riots and things. It's an internal issue. At the same time, there's something really cool that I thought I'd bring up because like we're not sitting here saying Torah study is bad or people that are dedicated to their Jewish faith is wrong. The community that we are next to here, where our studio is, the Mount of Blessing, Har Bracha, the chief rabbi here, his name is Rabbi Eliezer Melamed, very influential rabbi in Israel and around the world, dedicated Zionist, and he started a program that combines Torah study with military service in the IDF.
Mm-hmm.
And so religious Zionist Jews that want to pursue their education, their faith studies, which is yeshiva, basically, if you've heard of yeshiva and Torah study, they can do that and do their military service at the same time. So they do like 1 year in the Hesder yeshiva, 1 year in the military. And so they extend it to 5 years, but they're combining faith and their service to the country. And if I remember correctly, like the statistics from these guys is that they're some of the best soldiers in Israel.
That's
like
right.
They turn out some of the most, the special forces, the hardcore, the most dedicated guys. So it's a really cool concept. And I think, and I guess the other thing I would say is there's definitely is a slow movement of the Haredi becoming more and more Zionist and more joining the military. There's even the Hashmonaim Brigade, right? Which is like all ultra-Orthodox from what I understand in the IDF.
Which I heard that they were just deployed recently for the first time outside of Israel's borders into Lebanon.
Oh, wow.
That just happened, that they were sent out into a beyond the border area.
It's honestly kind of exciting to me to see the Haredi Jewish religious communities growing so rapidly, and because they represent the religious side of Israel. There's some things that aren't meshing well within the context of the what people call the state, the government. But I think that is a part of the growth of the nation. This is a brand new country. I mean, we're talking about, in its modern context, we're just talking about since 1948, and these elements are growing together. They're meshing. It may not seem like it, but there is a mesh happening and this is just a part of it. Eyal Zamir is bringing this up to say, hey, if we don't figure this out now, there will be massive consequences for this that will divide our country in massive ways once these numbers grow to the amount that they are headed. Like they're headed in that direction. The good news is that these are people who believe in God. These are people who believe in the Jewish people and their role in the world. So now there's just a few more pieces to connect, unify the people of Israel, which is, hey, that's happening. I think that the Jewish people, what we saw before October 7th and what we see today is a massive one of the most positive things happening in the nation of Israel is the unification of the Jewish people from so many different backgrounds and types of, religious, non-religious, secular, all of coming together has been massive thing. So I think that we're definitely pointed in a good direction. And I hope that this has brought a little bit of clarity on that big piece. But shall we give a war update on what's happening
Maybe
on
we
this
can
front?
Put a picture up on the screen. But on the home front, our team has, I think we just, Justin was a 91st trip to the bomb shelter yesterday, something like that. And we'll put a picture on the screen. Early on, our volunteers that were here, they started this thing where they started marking on the wall in the one bomb shelter every time they went, and they named it the West Tank. So it's kind of a funny thing, but now it's like we have to keep it up every time we go. So
91 trips.
91 trips to the bomb shelter. That's we have the numbers from Iran. Do you have those numbers? I think they're at
400
the bottom
rockets
of the
that have come
over
from Iran.
400
But
missiles.
here's the deal:
Yeah.
is that we've run to the bomb shelter here in our very location 91 times, but across the country we don't get every alert.
That's right.
And so and when we're in our bomb shelter, sometimes there's multiple volleys that are sent. So that's not a rocket.
Well,
count.
too, we were talking about it, and like since February 28th, it seems like there should have been like a couple thousand missiles fired from Iran, and there's 400 and something, I think.
Yeah,
but
over 400, 465,
470 is what
there's
I
a
saw,
major difference between these missiles and rockets that have been traditionally fired from Gaza or even Lebanon.
Yep.
And like typically they haven't been firing like volleys.
Yep.
Like maybe they'll fire 5 or something at the same time, but sometimes there's like one missile that comes, or
Right.
2 or 3. And the crazy thing now, like the craziest thing I've seen in my life, I think, are these cluster warheads.
Right.
No,
Oh,
they're-
those are
It's been
insane.
twice, maybe 3 times they've gone right over our heads. Are we like, we can show you guys the video we took. Like this is not something out of sci-fi or AI. Like one of our team members got his phone out on the way to the bomb shelter, and like it's the wildest thing I've ever seen.
Well, what
You
that
see
is
one massive light streaking through the sky, and then 20 little
it booms off. Right?
flames behind it. Like
Well, it's probably
like
more than that. It's like,
starships
I don't know.
or
If I don't
something.
know how many clusters, how many in that cluster bomb, how many bombs are attached to it. But basically, it just goes off. There are these little, what I understand is the little cylinders that are attached, and it all just.
And I heard each one
goes
of them
off.
is like, I want to say like between 1 and 2 kilos. So you're talking 3 to 5 pounds each. Which if you think about it, especially people that have been in the military, like what is a grenade is what, like 1 pound or something?
Well, we have that video of where it just
You've got to
flips
see
it.
what this thing does.
But
Yeah.
that was
Gotta
one
watch
of
this.
We'll
those
show that on the
bombs.
screen.
That was one of those cluster bombs that throws this car into
Well,
the
it's so-
air.
it's so
flipping.
crazy
Like,
It
because
hit a
the
car
crazy-
directly, and the car jumped in the air and flew like 20, 30 feet and landed like
Well,
upside
just
down.
watch this video because this was wild. And you can see it here. This couple, or I don't know, 2 people here. They step out of their car and they walk inside, and then 30 seconds, they're out of their car, and then one of these cluster bombs. It's not a because we'll show you in just a second what a actual ballistic missile. No, that would have been This is a cluster bomb.
Yeah, the
It's
car
small.
would not be existing anymore.
Yeah, and
Like,
actually,
but
if you stop the video and watch the top of the car has a hole in it about like this. It's that cluster bomb went right through it,
So
and then blows.
like these cluster
It's just
bombs
crazy.
are, it's like
But
a grenade times 5 or 10 or
it's
something.
where
Like,
most
it's
of
not
the
an
injuries-
insignificant thing.
it's where
it's
a
massive.
lot of the injuries are coming from because
Right.
it's so much harder to shoot down. When you have a cluster bomb come in,
The
this-
last second, it disperses into 20 bombs.
and an Iron Dome or David Sling or whatever these
How you
different
gonna do
like
that?
you
Yeah.
can't target all of those at the same time.
Well, and I also want to bring up that that's supposedly that's like one of the most illegal things that you can possibly do. Everybody's talking about how, according to international law, you're not allowed to do this and that, and according to the laws of war. Well, according to the laws of war, you're clearly not allowed to shoot cluster bombs into civilians' areas. Well, for all the world that's condemning Israel on every front and how they're conducting the war in Gaza specifically. Well, how about everybody just take a look at what's happening with Iran? Iran is shooting cluster bombs into the largest and actually the most condensed areas, populated areas in the world. And everybody said that about Gaza, but that's not even true.
Basically, we're in the path.
Israel has the
We're
largest.
in like the path between
densest
Iran
communities.
and Israel's center, which is where 80% of Israel's population lives. So like the reason we made 91 trips to the bomb shelters because we're like dead in the middle. and so they always go like right over our heads. And
I'd
we've
say
had,
smack in the
we've
middle,
had,
not
like,
dead in the middle. We're not.
Yeah.
We're
not
all
dead
alive and well.
as of the recording of this video. But
right.
we have had lots of fragments and chunks of missiles fall
Yeah.
in the areas all around
Oh, I
us.
got them all
Like,
around us here. I mean, I can pick up pieces all
Oh,
around.
but
our
like
studio.
actual,
Yeah, there you go.
like
That's all
10
stuff.
foot
Yeah.
long missiles, have like after they've exploded, have dropped in the
Pieces
ground.
of shrapnel, right?
Yeah. So we do want to get into the crazy miracles that have happened in the last couple of weeks. If you don't see the hand of God, then was it David Ben Gurion said to live in Israel, or no, to be a realist in Israel, you have to believe in miracles. So we'll get into that in a minute. But just to talk about update from the war, what's happening now is Hezbollah has fully joined the fight. They fired 600 missiles in 24 hours this week. Wednesday and Thursday, so 600
Which we're not
missiles.
getting a lot of those rocket. That's up in the north. I mean, it's crazy. Like people are in and out of their bomb shelters.
And Hezbollah,
constantly.
they're firing combination of lots of different rockets and missiles,
which they
things
did
like
fire for the first time in a long time, long range. Like they hit down further south this week.
I thought this was interesting. Uganda is threatening to join the war against Iran, siding with Israel So way to go, Uganda.
Wow.
That sounds kind of to me like the Houthis joining the war with, against Israel with Iran.
I think we need to be grateful for every bit of support.
Yeah, I just don't know much about the Ugandan military, and I wouldn't expect that it's like.
Is this a big asset? Like,
I don't know. I honestly don't know that much.
Maybe
about
they could
Ugandan
just take care of the
military.
Houthis. That would be.
Yeah,
they're kind of down there in the same part of the world.
Right.
So
it is. I do love the fact that the Ugandans are saying, "Hey, we support Israel." I mean, I think that's amazing.
Hey, and maybe this will pull Uganda out of like that they'll actually become like a
blessed, like
blessed nation, Abrahamic blessing going to Uganda.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Stand with Israel.
From what I hear, they're like, because everybody knows the famous story of Entebbe, where the plane was hijacked and landed at the Ugandan airport.
Right.
Bibi Netanyahu's brother was killed in the operation to rescue his hostages. But from what I understand today, they're really like making a lot of efforts to side with Israel and stand it and kind of overturn that history. So if you're not familiar, Amit Siegel is a really great, one of the foremost Israeli conservative commentators. He's on Israeli TV in Hebrew, but he also has a lot of resources in English. He has a newsletter called It's Noon in Israel. Definitely recommend you get on that for some of the best news coming out of Israel. But he did analysis yesterday, because you're hearing about all these negotiations between Trump and Iran. Who's their mediator right now? Pakistan? Is it Pakistan, right? It's kind of like that. Feels like it changes every day. You have like Turkey trying to get involved, France trying to get involved, right? So according to his analysis, you have the Pentagon and the U.S. Central Command are developing plans for a finishing blow against Iran. So Trump has now announced a 10-day. It's not a ceasefire, but a 10-day. Basically, he has agreed to not strike the energy infrastructure in Iran for 10 days, and he's put a deadline. But at the same time, the reports are that the U.S. is preparing, like Amit Siegel saying, for a finishing blow against Iran if they don't start complying very quickly. So what's happening right now? Amit says there's 4 options on the table for the U.S. and hopefully, and probably hand in hand with Israel. They could invade or blockade the Karg Island. Which, as I understand, the Karg Island right off the coast of Iran is where like the majority of all these gnats. If you see these gnats in the show, they won't go away. That's like Iran's main oil infrastructure and facilities, right?
Right.
And the U.S. would like to actually take control of that fully would be a major step. Seizing the Larak Island, which anchors Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz. As you guys know, Iran's been trying to keep ships from going through the Strait of Hormuz. That is where 20% of the world's oil comes out of. A lot of it going to China, which is weird. Like, I don't know why China is not willing to get involved, because Iran's basically stopping their oil from making it out of the Middle East there. And then taking control of Abu Musa and 2 smaller islands near the strait's western entrance and intercepting Iranian oil tankers on the eastern side of Hormuz. So that's what the U.S. is kind of facing right now, but there's also reports that the U.S. is preparing for ground operations, possibly. And so as we go into the weekend, America has to weigh their decisions, right? Like, what are they going to do? And at this point, I've been trying to think through this too, and I've been curious to hear you guys what you think. Like, what is the definition of success and victory for the United States or for Israel against Iran? Because a lot of people don't realize Iran is a massive country, huge territory, 90 million people. And what would victory look like in this war? Because nobody wants the war to drag on. The United States doesn't want to be dragged on to a multi-month, multi-year war. They don't want thousands of troops on the ground, American lives being lost. Israel obviously does not want the same thing either. So America could just real quick. America could continue with its current direction, or they could end the war with a negotiated settlement. We could just be like, okay, we're done, and at that point,
come back to it in 2
Iran
years.
would rebuild. Like they at this point, they could rebuild, right? Nuclear program, missile program,
Right.
Or we could go back to pounding the regime, or just walk away altogether and just call a ceasefire, right?
I think that what we're looking at is, and what the world is hoping for, is similar to what we've seen in the world's past days past, where we had an actual victory, where we won.
Well,
and there was regime change.
That's been a long time.
That's been a long time, and it hasn't happened since, I don't know what World
Japan.
War one.
Yeah. Seems like modern wars are very complicated to reach full victory on in today's world.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think we can. I think it's very much possible if we give an ultimatum, we stick to our guns literally and say, no, this has got to happen. And I think that's very doable. And I think that's what we need in the world today to bring back actually real peace. And like we're serious. This is not just a negotiation war. This is not just to get you, to come to the table to talk. I think that's a big deal. Now, I think part of the thing I was just thinking about, Luke, is you were talking about that with them taking over the Craig Island or Karg Island, however you say that, and the ideas here, and a little bit with Trump playing back and forth. One day he's talking about a ground invasion. The next day he's talking about negotiations happening. The next day,
this war's over.
This war's over. We already finished it. And I was playing that, and as you're talking about China being involved here, I was just thinking, I wonder if part of the game here is to keep them guessing to try to keep them out of the war. And because you do have other countries that if China got involved with the war, for one, I don't think China wants America to control those islands. That actually decreases China's power in the region. And so keeping them guessing in some ways keeps them a little bit in the dark about exactly what's going on. Well, if the war's about to wrap up, then we shouldn't. But if it's going to be, and kind of throwing all this stuff on the table keeps everybody a little bit guessing on what's actually going on. And so I don't know. And that's a really big deal here, is about other countries potentially getting involved, and keeping them out.
Well, one thing we do know is that Trump is a master negotiator, and he's really good at fooling people. And he loves the art of the game, the art of the deal, right? So we don't really know exactly what the U.S. demands are in this negotiation. Also, Iran supposedly is publicly claiming that they're not negotiating with the U.S. So even though they clearly are, but
they have demands.
We do know what Iran's demands are. You want to hear them?
Sure.
Because if you want a good laugh, guys, this is just great. The IRGC's demands include the closure of all U.S. bases in the Gulf, reparations for strikes on Iran, a Hormuz transit fee arrangement, an end to strikes on Hezbollah, the lifting of all sanctions, and the preservation of its missile program. So they don't want much. They really don't want much.
When someone says reparations in the middle of a war, I'm already thinking, who helped them write this thing? I mean, what kind of woke thing? I mean, that's we
do know CNN is on the ground
thing you can do is be like, oh, reparations. That's going to reach a big crowd. You need to have reparations. I'm like, what kind of stuff?
Iran doesn't want much, not at all. So
it's just a bunch of
a U.S. official called the demands ridiculous and unrealistic.
I think there is one other solution here for this war is just bomb the nuts out of them and basically take them back to wherever. Even if they don't surrender, it's going to take them 100 years to recover. At some point, Afghanistan's not an issue today. We can talk about the failures of Afghanistan, but today Afghanistan has no real power. Saddam Hussein's gone.
Another point that I'm trying to remember where I heard it. Maybe it was Ben Shapiro, as he said that everyone wants things now. Everybody talks about regime change is the goal, right?
Right.
Is Israel going to force regime change? Is America going to force regime change? He said, a key in the ultimate success is patience. And he said, if regime change happens in 6 months because of the weakening of Iran in the war, that's a success. Or if it happens in 2 years even.
Which historically it takes time.
That's still success. Right. And to affect regime change in a country with 90 million people, such a massive territory, just through strikes from America or Israel is that's a difficult thing, right?
I was talking to Yishai about that, Yishai Fleischer about that exact topic, and he was saying, well, people don't realize that the Iron Curtain didn't just fall in former Soviet Union just overnight. It wasn't. He said there was stages to it. That's where his family came from. But and he was talking about how they got out and these different things. He actually went to Yishai's dad's his grave in Jerusalem, and he was telling me the story, and it was really, really a wild story of his dad, just an incredible guy, but how he fled from the former Soviet Union and came to Israel. But he was talking about the stages of that, and in the context of Iran's 90% Muslim today, and I don't see regime change, and he was saying the same thing, is happening overnight. Now, he said, but we could take one step in that direction. And in this war, we see taking one step in freedom for the people of Iran. And, maybe a couple of years down the road, we take another step.
I think a big win
becomes.
I agree with you. And I think that the big win right now is to stop their tentacles that have sponsored and fueled the Islamic regime of terror in the entire Middle East. If that can be constrained to just be maybe we're not going to get to the full idea of everybody has in their mind right now, wow, what would it be like to have a free Iran where the people were not held under a regime any longer and they could be free to just be a free nation, to be able to not operate under this Sharia kind of like mindsets of the harsh realities of this. And can we bring that freedom? Like you're saying, there's 90% Muslims there. Well, can that happen? And I think that's a further goal and a farther stretch. And you know what we found in America and wars around, nations are going to do what nations want to do, and we can't make them do anything specifically as it regards to them. But what we can do is make sure that they don't influence other places. So we can cut those tentacles off. We can put sanctions down. We can say, no, you cannot do this, and you're not allowed to do this, and you can't ship here. You can't
Which
do
is
that.
supposed to be the job of the UN.
Right. Well, they're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. But can you imagine stopping that flow of weapons, illegal smuggling, and all of that
well,
stuff? That's the stuff we can
another big one
now.
That I understand is removing the enriched uranium that's in Iran.
Right, and we can also do that.
Because if that doesn't happen, then it's going to be up to Israel to stop a nuclear weapon, like in the very near future.
Right,
for sure.
Well, I think having those red lights
sounds like a great job for the Mossad, and if I had to guess, I would say they're probably already working on it. But as things stand right now, President Trump announced just yesterday that he's pausing strikes on Iranian energy infrastructure. He said, quote, as per Iranian government request, please let this statement serve to represent that I'm pausing the period of energy plant destruction by 10 days to Monday, April 6, 2026 at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
He's given a date.
What do you think? What are the odds here?
I think that this infrastructure is not going to last long.
So I think we should talk about southern Lebanon, what's going on there, because like we said, 600 rockets and missiles out of Lebanon in 24 hours this week. Now Israel has announced they're moving to establish a buffer zone in southern Lebanon, taking 10% of Lebanon's territory. And they're saying Israel Defense Minister Israel Katz says they will control a security zone up to the Litani River until the threat of Hezbollah is removed.
Well, this was something that happened back in the 80s.
This is significant.
This hasn't, from 82 to 2000.
Yeah, 82 to 2000, yeah.
The people, after the Second Lebanon War, there was a lot of stuff that went down there, and they held troops there, and then they backed out. Well, what happened when they backed out? Just like what happened in Gaza. Yep. Well, these terror entities, Hamas, Hezbollah, all these Iranian fueled militias came in and filled the void. And we also see that, something a lot of people don't think about is also the down in the Egypt on the, what do you call it? The Sinai.
Yeah.
Sinai, same exact thing. And that's something that people aren't aware of. And that's a real problem that's still there. It is infested with Hamas underground. It's a Muslim Brotherhood.
Yep,
it's just another faction of the Hamas.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's a real area. Any area that Israel has been and then pulls back is a void for terrorism to come in and infest.
Well, we see the same thing with the Oslo Accords.
Yeah,
exactly
here in
the same
Samaria,
story.
exactly the same situation. Yep. So what I see here, as it refers to southern Lebanon, is a very biblical story unfolding. Israel is moving.
Check out that map.
Yeah, you got to check the map. I mean, this is incredible. Right. And biblically speaking, the map of Israel is much larger. We have, it could be all the way to the Euphrates River, all the way to the north. We're not talking about that right now, saying that's going to, this is where we're pointing towards. No, we're saying that
it's not what we're advocating for.
No,
we're just saying Israel has announced that they're taking 19 miles, 30 kilometers from the current Israeli northern border into Lebanon. They're going to hold that. I was thinking about this because a couple of years ago, we did a family vacation in a little Israeli kibbutz on the Lebanon border. One of the our favorite places, and
beautiful.
we're going back there. Well, right after that, October 7th happened, and that community was evacuated. Since October 7th, the people in the north of Israel have not been able to return to normal lives, and if they have, it's been so short-lived. The millions of people in the north of Israel have been their lives completely turned upside down and disrupted for 2.5 years now.
Right,
and Israel's saying Lebanon isn't taking care of Hezbollah. They're not taking care of this problem. Right. Lebanon had announced that they were driving Hezbollah out. They're saying we don't want them anymore. Either they're not willing to follow through on it or they're not strong enough. It's probably a combination of both. And Hezbollah has still been running rampant around the country, which means constantly attacking Israel. Terrorism, rockets, missiles. Israel has no choice if they want a large percentage of their country in the north to be able to live a normal life, they have to take that territory and hold it as a buffer zone. And they're going to hold it until there's no chance that Hezbollah isn't going to come in and invade and take that territory. Like, Hezbollah is a tentacle of Iran, sworn enemy of Israel, and they are very strong, or they were.
Yeah,
they've slowly been
less so now,
diminishing. But like they were not like Hamas. They were not like the Houthis.
Right.
They were a serious military force, a terrorist military force.
Right.
And Lebanon has tried to kick them out. They're trying to oust them. But the problem is Hezbollah has so ingrained themselves into the country. They even have people that are members of parliament.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very difficult for Lebanon to complete. And we're talking tens and tens of thousands of members.
The other thing that I really love about this is it's speaking the language of the locals. When you go in, and Defense Minister Katz made this very clear, he said, if you do not stop this terrorism, if Hezbollah does not stop attacking Israel, you will lose territory. That's speaking the language of the enemy. And by going in and saying, we said it and we're doing it, you're losing ground is the way Islamists think. Gaining ground is the way that fuels and invigorates them and says, yes, we're going to win. When you give up southern Lebanon, when you give up Gaza, when you give up the Sinai, when you give off Oslo Accords and you take Judea and Samaria and split it up, they're like, yes, we are on a long-term game. We're winning. Jews are losing. When you say, we're not playing this game anymore, boom, we're taking control of this area. You no longer have access here. We are destroying your military capabilities. You no longer can fight and kill us any longer. That's done. We're not fighting your citizens. We're not attacking you and your villages. We're fighting a military infrastructure that's created to kill our citizens, and we're saying no to that. It will never happen again. Then you're fighting this war with a local mindset, which is to win. That talk about winning.
Yep.
That is winning. Taking territory.
I don't think this
winning.
is just local. I think this is international. I was listening. I don't remember if it was Michael Knowles or Ben Shapiro that were talking about that Trump is the first president we've had in a long time that has an expansionist mindset. And when you have an expansionist mindset, it sends a message to all of your enemies that we're not playing around. If you make the wrong move, we're not afraid to expand. And we're not afraid to take over these areas. And I really agree with Smotrich here that he says we need to annex all the way to the Litani River. He made this comment, and I think that really, like you're saying, speaks the language. And it says, no, we're serious. This is the new line, and it's annexation, not some kind of buffer zone or some kind of deal that's kind of in limbo that in 10 years it's given back or given to some kind of deal.
Just think about the way the enemies think.
All the way through.
When the Jordanians came in 19 years between, when they came in after 1948 to 1967, well, they immediately, as soon as they stepped, we're annexing. This is our territory.
Boom.
That's what you do in the Middle East. That's what you do in the world, for goodness sakes. The Jews are the only ones that the world says can't do that.
Well,
in wartime, you're real about your boundaries. If you take an area because of a critical, existential threat against your people, you take that territory and you hold it.
Right.
That's what you do.
Well, and if you actually look at the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, and all the terrorism that's come from this area, there's 2 million Muslim Arabs that live across the Green Line.
Yeah.
Most of the terrorism has come from Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. And everybody says this is the problem. There's actually probably equal amount of Arabs that live in that area as across the Green Line.
That's right.
But there's not hardly any terrorism that comes from that side. There's a little bit of crime. There's whatever, but it's dealt with by the police. These issues, it's that you don't have the intifadas coming from those areas. They're coming from within areas that are still in limbo. And as long as you leave it in limbo, even in the years after the Oslo Accords were signed, everybody had this utopia of peace was coming to the Middle East. Between the 1993 when the first deal was signed to 1995 when Rabin was assassinated, that there was terror attacks happening that entire time. Constant terror attacks, even right after the Oslo Accords were signed. Yeah. Because there's this limbo, and it's putting people in a place where maybe not.
They talk about
only way
Oslo
to bring
was
peace.
signed and peace broke out, right?
Right. Yeah.
More. I mean, there was way more terrorism and violence and wars after Oslo than there were before.
So as long as you leave that a buffer zone, you're actually inviting more violence and terrorism.
I think Israel's just fed up. They've gone decades of violence breaks out. They put down the violence. They have peace for a few months or a few years. Violence breaks out again. They put the violence down. Same thing pattern. And they're like, you know what? We're fed up with this. We're done with this.
Right.
We're gonna go 30 kilometers into Lebanon and just hold that territory because that way we know they can't stick their missile launchers in there and fire into our, our populations
happens,
in the north.
Israel says that, but then what happens when the international community comes back and says, no, you're not allowed and we're not going to sell you weapons.
Israel
we're going to sanction you.
About the international community.
I agree, but I think at the same time, we need to have a message for the international community. Let's try something different.
That's why
let's do something different.
That's why I want people to understand, like, just paint this picture.
Mm-hmm. Right.
For whatever town you live in, if the next town over has been shooting rockets into your town for 20 years,
that's not really acceptable.
Then eventually you would be real happy if your local police department went and just took over the town and didn't give it back to the people that were shooting rockets at you.
Totally.
We're in the Wild West.
Can
we're ready
can
to
we get rid of the politics and the
right?
People don't like rockets being shot into their homes.
Well, let's just back Israel. Let's say, you know what, Israel, do what you need to do. And let's get rid of the terrorists, and let's create sovereignty. And actually, the lives for the Arabs in these areas is going to be way better.
And we've already proven that.
That's
the
been
Arabs
proven.
And inside the sovereign
2
state of
million
Israel,
Arabs,
so much
citizens,
and actually,
citizen state of Israel.
Not only
they are happy to be.
Not only that, they're
Israel.
actually better than all the Arab countries around Israel.
Oh yeah.
Not only the ones under the Palestinian Authority, the ones under the Palestinian Authority are almost some of the worst
take
areas.
The Syrian Druze begging Israel to give them citizenship in the state of Israel,
right?
Because they want to be part of Israel. You guys ready for a miracle? Time to talk about some miracles. It's like our favorite topic here at the Israel Guys.
That's right.
You guys heard this story, I'm sure. A misdirect ballistic missile strike on the city of Arad. Arad is in the south of Israel, in the Negev desert. No casualties.
It's unreal.
No casualties.
Insane.
And not only did this ballistic missile, it didn't hit in an open field. It didn't hit a park. It didn't hit, outside city limits. It didn't even hit inside city limits. It was worse than that. It hit in an apartment complex. And we'll show you guys the photos and some video footage. When I saw this,
it's insane.
A ballistic missile. How tall is it, Josh? They're 5.5 stories?
5 stories tall.
5 stories
Massive.
tall. Guys, I don't know if you can picture this, like how massive a ballistic missile is and how much damage it can cause. I think you and Justin did some research and last, what was it, Justin? Do you remember, in the 80s or something, like 500 and something people were killed in one ballistic missile strike?
That's right.
That's how much damage these missiles can cause, like hundreds and hundreds of people killed in one strike. This ballistic missile not only missed hitting any buildings, it hit directly between all of the apartments in that complex. And we're talking about a condensed, very packed close together apartment buildings. And the missile went directly between and hit the ground between. Now, it did cause damage. It sheared off like the entire side of several buildings, but it missed directly hitting them.
Do you know that this is insane? Just the fact that no one was killed. That is a ballistic missile impacts right in the middle of a densely populated apartment building area with thousands of people inside of this area. 115 people are wounded. But can you
imagine?
Still,
some in critical condition.
That's right. But not one person was killed. And we pray that holds with these. We pray for those that are still wounded and recovering. But I cannot even fathom. Can you imagine? Just 15 feet to this side. This is flying all the way from Iran. A few feet to this side, it hits a apartment building smack on. Everyone in that apartment building would have been killed. That's the reality of the situation. These are massive apartment buildings with hundreds and hundreds of people.
Even so, when you see these photos, you're like, how in the world? I just heard this story this morning. Somehow I missed this story. There was a child.
This is unbelievable.
Thrown from the 4th floor, and he was found, put in an ambulance. He's alive, taken to the hospital. He gets to the hospital, and the boy goes, I didn't get hurt at all. Like, why? I don't know. Somebody put me in an ambulance, but I'm fine. Totally fine. There's another video about a story about a boy thrown from a 3rd floor along with his bed. And when he lands in his
mattress.
On the mattress, on the ground.
That's insane.
And only minor scrapes.
It's crazy.
Like, how in the world does this happen?
And to understand this miracle of this, like in Arad, these ballistic missiles, like the warhead on those would be 2 tons. Right. A 2-ton bomb.
Well, you guys saw
1 ton bomb.
To compare it, remember that car that flipped?
Yeah.
It landed 30 feet away from
that was a little tiny
3-pound cluster head. compare that to 1 ton hitting
1
something.
ton. Yeah, that's insane. 2,000.
And these
How in the
boys,
world?
I just get your mind around this. The bomb hits. If you don't think God is real and there's his those guardian angels over these precious lives were real. I mean, you're getting thrown from a 4-story building upon an impact of a ballistic missile. You're flying. Your bed, everything in the house is being destroyed. And you're gliding through 4 stories of depth, and you're landing on your bed, and you're perfectly fine. There's not a scratch on your body. You don't believe in God? I think there's a time for you to check yourself. And then the same thing on the next door neighbor over here. He gets thrown from his 3rd story, and nothing. He's fine. He lands in the rubble. He's actually buried in rubble, and they pull him out. He's fine.
Like, why did you take me to the hospital? I was fine.
I'm doing fine. Where's my family?
Come on, where's the
they're
playground?
here. Everybody's okay.
It used to be right here.
Those miracles are happening, and I think that's what we're here to tell you guys. I don't think this is being reported, that this is absolutely the most miraculous thing. We need to pray for those that are injured, and there was some that were injured, but how this could have been so much worse. There could have been. This is a mass casualty moment. Not one person dies. How in the world?
Also wonder, all the people out there that are aligning themselves against Israel and demonizing Israel and Israel's committing genocide and stuff, there's a lot of stories you could look at and a lot of facts and statistics, but if you're watching from afar and you see this happen, I'm like, are you sure that God's not maybe with the nation of Israel? Maybe you should check out, because you can go all the way back to 1947, and the miracles have followed Israel for decades.
They don't make logical
sense. Takes you back to biblical times.
Thousands of years, actually.
Yeah, biblical times.
You talk about following Israel. I mean, it's a miraculous story.
But miracles have followed the Jewish people in the state of Israel for a long time. And the modern state of Israel is packed full of miracles. That's why David Ben-Gurion said, if you want to be a realist, you got to believe in miracles in Israel, right? IDF spokesman Brigadier General Effie Defrin said Iranian soldiers responsible for the missile fire on the southern city of Arad on Saturday night were killed in an airstrike. He said, we continue to hunt and eliminate the soldiers and commanders of the missile array. We can now say that yesterday we eliminated the cell that was responsible for the fire toward Arad. Enemies of Israel, you better watch
I'm trying to figure out what the Iranians are thinking right now. The IRGC, what?
I want to know what soldiers are still willing to fire these missiles.
They don't have any air defense, which is pretty obvious. I mean, was there one F-35 that was taken down? The U.S. one?
I think one, so. But even so, it was hit. But then
and they landed somewhere. But
it wasn't even
the entire sky is controlled by Israel and America. What are they?
When basically every time a missile, every time there's a heat detection from a missile launcher, it's boom, and it's taken out immediately.
Right.
It's a suicide mission.
Well, I think it goes back to the mentality of an Islamic regime.
It's true.
It is not.
Oh yeah, it's a suicide. It's a death culture.
Well, yeah, for sure.
So one more topic we got to mention, because it's a strange story, and I don't think we have all the details and the facts yet, but there's definitely some questions. We're just asking questions, guys. We got to ask some questions. So I saw it earlier this week, again, from a Meet Seagulls newsletter, and it's that under international pressure, or pressure from the international, I think from the U.S., actually, the Ministry of Defense is, after pressure from Washington, here it is, the government will approve the establishment of a unit in the Ministry of Defense to deal with the Hilltop youth with a budget of 130 million shekels for the next 3 years. Now, this is something that the mainstream media loves to talk about. It used to be settler violence. Now it's all Hilltop youth. It's same rhetoric or whatever. The Hilltop youth, they're violent. Always killing Palestinians and burning cars.
Hilltop youth sounds much better than
taking
violent settlers. That's great.
Taking homes and stealing land and stuff like that. So we've had some decent interaction with the Hilltop youth. We even have I don't know if we can say that, Justin. We have a confidential informant, I guess, in the Hilltop youth that sometimes we reach out to for clarification on stories. And there's a few people that are kind of rowdy. Sometimes.
Can I say 2 things? One is that, yes, there's a side that Westerners look at the radical, side of Israel. And
just real quick, I want to make sure people don't misunderstand me. Yeah. There's a few people that are rowdy, but it's maybe 10% of what the media is reporting at most. Mm-hmm. It's a fraction of what you are hearing. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Well, and these guys are on that side of it. They're saying, okay, why did somebody light a car on fire? And they're just looking at the raw data. And they're like, okay, that's not good. Let's deal with this as we're dealing with crime. But what they don't understand is the other side. This is a Middle Eastern situation. These people that are doing this, and I'm not condoning working outside of the military and the legal realm, but you have to understand what happens in this neighborhood. In this neighborhood, you have illegal things rampant constantly.
Well, a good
Arab
example
villages.
is that this week, an 18-year-old man,
That's
young
the story
man
I'm thinking
from
of.
a neighboring community was murdered in a terrorist attack. That part, I'm almost positive the media was very happy to leave out.
No. What they did was they said that he was murdered because of the Hilltop youth being rowdy. Well, that's exactly opposite of the truth.
Exactly opposite of what happened.
Well, the reality is that in these rogue Arab communities that are completely lawless, and we've already touched on this today, and there's no law or order. It's all clan and tribal-based leadership, which is the stronger you are and the more powerful you are, the more you can...
And to clarify, these are the areas that are under the Palestinian Authority.
Right.
These are the areas.
Which is actually under no authority whatsoever. It's that's like a fake rulership that has no actual control. It's very corrupt. And whatever gang is inside that town actually runs the town.
For sure.
So this precious life was lost on this farm. This Jewish, believing in God, incredible young man, establishing back in the homeland and the faith of Abraham, like so incredible.
Yep.
He is killed by a rogue terrorist from the village next door. What is the response to a community that's side by side, a Jewish community, young people in that community? No one's doing something. No one's stepping in to say, no, this is not allowed. And that's what the people miss so many times. And I'm not condoning the fact that people need to do things on their own, but you have to understand the context of what these people are working with. There's not a lot of control inside those areas. So what they're not doing is they're not going in and killing people. And I give the Hilltop youth, people that are on their own, and a lot of times in these next to villages that are very hostile, they're not responding with the death cult of Islam. They are responding when you kill my friend. You better believe there's a response, and this is just from them. They're saying you're going to feel it, and we're not accepting this as just norm. You're going to see us.
Well, they're tired. They're tired of their friends.
We're going to walk
killed.
right through your streets and blatantly just walk through your streets. And then the whole world's going to film them walking through the streets, and they're going to paint some things on some stuff. Nobody's going to die. It's just an act of like, we're here and we're not moving. And they're going through. And then everybody in the world posts this as though it's the most atrocious thing. Jews walk through the streets of an Arab village. How could they do that? That's
now,
such an encouragement. What they don't see is that they just killed their friend.
To me.
Yeah.
Now, what needs to happen?
Insane.
What should be happening here is that Israel should be sovereign.
That's right.
And they should be coming in and stop. Wow, you can hear the rain. Probably hear it through the microphones.
Thank God.
Here we are.
It's almost April. Israel's still getting rain, which is a huge blessing.
The latter rains.
That's right.
Coming in.
That's right.
Wow, that's loud. So anyways, the state of Israel should be sovereign and strong, and they should be stopping the terrorism and violence that are killing Jews,
and for some
especially in Judea and
places
Samaria.
They are.
And
they are doing a good job,
but
the IDF.
Jews are still being killed.
More needs to be done.
You're not hearing that story in the media and the social media. Yeah. So to get back to this national plan, our researcher, Joseph, actually was able to look at some Hebrew sources and found that the main points, as far as we know right now, of this national plan for the Hilltop youth, 130 million shekels, is to encourage programs to encourage them to be recruited into the IDF, helping people not drop out of school, social support, strengthening the communities, expanding activities and culture and sports and training, things like. So it sounds good, but what the weird and kind of suspicious part is, wow, that's loud rain, is why did Israel form this from after being pressured from Washington? Like, that's just strange.
That's
like,
weird.
It feels like there's something that we don't know about yet.
And America, from our perspective, we're always just a little bit leery when the government comes in to help. Like, we're the government, we're here to help. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm trying to imagine a situation in America where, like, your local town, like, hey guys, we're establishing this new social program for the troubled youth in the downtown city because France said that we need to do that.
Right.
So we decided we're going to listen to France.
What would be acceptable is if the governors and local people said, hey, there's a new organization I'm just thinking a mayor of a town saying, hey, there's a new organization in town that's just, and we're going to work together with them to provide assistance to our homeless or our this issue or that issue. And that's how I see things working really well, is working with the private sector to say, hey, thanks. So you're right. This sounds a little strange to be coming from a deeply political, another country involved.
So my projection
when
is
it really
that
is a local thing.
we're probably going to find out more about this in the coming days
I think
and
so.
weeks.
And
So
it's
we might
probably-
have to report on this again.
It's probably not what it looks like.
Yeah. All right, guys. Anything else?
I think
Run
that's
out of
it.
time. It's almost Shabbat here in the land of Israel. So
Hey, I don't know if you guys know, I just had my first vlog post went out
that's right.
I saw
on
that.
this deal. I don't know if you guys saw
We'll
this.
link that down below. The Israel Guys
yep.
volunteer channel. You guys
That's
got to
right.
check it out. We got a second channel you didn't know about. And
That's right.
Nate's very first vlog on there. If you guys want to get the more like boots on the ground, on location, our work that we do in Judea and Samaria with volunteers and working with farmers, check that out. So
You plan
Justin,
to do that
you got to
like,
put that in
more
the,
often.
in the
right?
description
I
below.
believe so. So I haven't
Stay
heard
tuned.
the report on this one. If all goes
you did
well,
well.
if I get enough clicks on this,
I
actually,
checked it out.
if
I was
enough of you
impressed.
guys come in and watch this video,
There you go.
then they're gonna. Then I
The
think
only
they'll
thing
ask me to do more.
Thinking is
So
that
show you
we
some
should go ahead
B-roll,
and put a fund maybe together to get Nate a new hat if he gets going. You're not wearing your
the
real
cowboy hat is.
I know the problem is it doesn't work
little
with the
lacking.
headphones in here.
Right.
So
right.
I would wear it, but it doesn't work. With
Yeah, it's pretty authentic.
Yeah,
So.
but I don't know. I think you need a new one.
You guys tell us. Do I need a new hat?
I'm
I
pretty
like.
sure.
Yeah.
Go over there and watch that thing and
watch-
then comment on that video that Nate
That's
needs
right.
to-
All right, guys, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're following along. Check out the Israel Guys volunteer channel and the show notes newsletter at theisraelguys.com. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what's happening in Israel. We'll be back soon here at the Israel Guys.